Good evening, everybody. We are back with more breaking news. President Trump has fired one of the 7 governors of the Federal Reserve of the United States. She is Lisa Cook. She is one of the 12 people that determines the federal funds rate, the key federal funds interest rate. President Trump says he's firing her because of alleged false claims she made on one or more mortgage agreements. Now, there's this question, is that the real reason she's firing her? Or is the real reason he's firing her that he wants more control over the Fed so they lower interest rates? If you've been following President Trump for the past few months, you know how angry he has been that the Fed won't lower interest rates like he wants them to. He's been very vocal about this. Well, now he has fired a member of the Fed. A member of the Fed governors, who is one of the 12 people who determines the key federal funds rate. So, what's going to happen with all this? How will the markets take this? I don't know. We'll have to see, but we're going to give you an update about it. We're going to give you an update right now and take some comments and questions on the air. This just happened. This came out tonight. It came out about at 8 p.m. Eastern time. This was released by the White House. So let's get you some updates on this. Thank you for joining. Let me just take a second here and get all set up. We were just covering that SpaceX launch, which ended up not happening. But this happened right at the end of that. So I rushed back on the air. So let me just get set up here. PZ Papa Zulu says no one is above the law. Thank you, PZ Papa Zulu. To be clear, she hasn't been charged with anything yet. This is not a charge of a crime. This is President Trump removing her from her position. I also don't know if there's any legal questions about this. I saw. The New York Times says it's legally dubious, so I don't know if she has grounds to appeal this. That's a whole other question. Let's get into this, and I want to thank our moderator. Hold on, I'm hearing two of me. I want to thank our legally dubious. So why am I still hearing two of me? I shouldn't still be hearing two of me. Let's see. All right, so clearly I'm hearing what is still on that I'm hearing. All right, that's not on. It's coming from somewhere. Did I fix it? I think I fixed it. There you go. There's the letter from the White House right there. Oh, I got to get the second page of the letter too. Hang on. Hold on a second here. No, there's just, I got to go to his Truth Social and pick up the second page of the letter. He just said something else, Trump, as well. Okay. Hold on. Hang on a moment. Why won't it display? All right. I have to get page 2 somewhere else because I'm having a problem displaying page 2 from the Truth Social. There it is. For some reason, page 2 didn't want to display here. This is a very big deal. This is a very big deal. I know it seems like kind of a technical story, but some will see this as President Trump trying to just take over the Fed so that they will lower interest rates. The Fed traditionally is supposed to be independent from the president. Okay, so let me show you what happened here. First of all, let me show you the letter. And let me show you, let me thank our moderators for being here. So this might sound like this obscure financial story. No, this is a big deal. This is a really big deal. And a big question is, will the markets think the Fed is no longer independent from the president anymore? And they might think that that means long-term there's going to be more inflation because the president will want rates lower, which could lead to inflation in the long term, if not the short term. Hey, thanks to Janet B. That's one point about it. Thanks to Janet B. Also could ultimately make U.S. bonds less likely to pay back, less reliable. Thank you, Janet B., for moderating over there on YouTube. Thank you to Big Ball, if they think that, if the market thinks that. Big Ball of Yarn, Matthew Kohai 3, and McBritches, who are moderating over on Facebook, on Twitch. I'm sorry, Kay Lowry Body, Margaret Liley on Facebook. Thank you. Linda Belk, Larry, and Misha on X. All right, let's look at the letter. President Trump says, "Dear Governor Cook," again, she is one of the 7 governors of the Fed and one of the 12 people on the Federal Open Market Committee who decides the key federal funds interest rate. He says, "Pursuant to my authority under Article 2 of the Constitution of the U.S. and the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 as amended, you are hereby removed from your position on the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve effective immediately." He says, "The Federal Reserve Act provides that you may be removed at my discretion for cause. See this law. I have determined there is sufficient cause to remove you from your position," he says. Let me actually just get the whole letter on the screen for you. There. He says, as set forth in the criminal referral dated April 15th, 2025 from Mr. William J. Pulte. Bill Pulte is the director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency. And Bill Pulte has been one of the biggest, I guess you could say, cheerleaders in the Trump administration against Jerome Powell. He constantly posts things about Jerome Powell, negative things, and goes on TV and speaks negatively about Jerome Powell and suggests that he shouldn't be lowering interest rates. So, anyways, as set forth in the criminal referral dated August 15, 2025 from Mr. William J. Pulte, Director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, to Miss Pamela Bondi, Attorney General of the United States, criminal referral, attached to this letter as Exhibit A, there is sufficient reason to believe you may have made false statements on one or more mortgage agreements. For example, as detailed in the criminal referral, you signed one document attesting that a property in Michigan would be your primary residence for the next year. 2 weeks later, you signed another document for a property in Georgia, stating it would be your primary residence for the next year. It is inconceivable that you were not aware of your first commitment when making the second. It is impossible that you intended to honor both. The Federal Reserve has tremendous responsibility for setting interest rates and regulating reserve and member banks. The American people must have full confidence in the honesty of the members entrusted with setting policy and overseeing the Federal Reserve. In light of your deceit and potentially criminal conduct in a financial matter, they cannot, and I do not, have such confidence in your integrity. At a minimum, the conduct at issue exhibits the sort of gross negligence in financial transactions that calls into question your competence and trustworthiness as a financial regulator. And then he said, the executive power of the United States is vested in me as president, and as president, I have a solemn duty to ensure the laws of the United States are faithfully executed. I have determined that faithfully executing the law requires your immediate removal from office. Thank you for your attention to this matter. This is a big deal. Let me show you something more about this. Trump fires Fed Governor Lisa Cook, opening new front in fight for control over a central bank. Again, President Trump has for a long time been very openly critical of the Fed, namely Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Fed. But he says the Fed should lower interest rates, which he says will help the economy, and it'll cost less money for the federal government, which needs to borrow a lot of money, to borrow. The Fed has resisted lowering interest rates. They don't want to, one big reason is they don't want to cause inflation to be higher than it should be. So there's been this back and forth between President Trump and the Fed. The Fed traditionally is supposed to be independent of the president because you want the markets to have confidence that, for example, the Fed is going to control inflation and not just, try to do whatever it can to boost the economy in the short term. So President Trump has said he's going to replace Jerome Powell. He has said that. There's been speculation about whether he might try to fire Jerome Powell. But he has right now fired one of the 12 people that determines the key federal funds interest rate. Now, President Trump is saying he's doing it because he says she allegedly lied on one or more mortgage documents. Again, is that the real reason, or is that just an excuse to do it? I don't know. You can see here, AP says President Trump fired Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook late Monday, a sharp escalation in his battle to exert greater control over what has long been considered an institution independent from day-to-day politics. Trump said in a letter posted on his Truth Social platform that he is firing Cook because of allegations that she committed mortgage fraud. Bill Pulte, a Trump appointee to the agency that regulates mortgage giants Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, made the accusations last week. Pulte alleged that Cook had claimed two primary residences in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Atlanta in 2021 to get better mortgage terms. Mortgage rates are often higher on second homes or those purchased to rent. The announcement came days after Cook said she would not leave her post, despite Trump previously calling for her to resign. The Fed's board has 7 members, meaning Trump's move could have deep economic and political ramifications. AP also says Trump said in announcing the move that he had the constitutional authority to remove Cook, but doing so will raise questions about control of the Fed as an independent entity. The firing is likely to touch off a legal battle, and Cook could be allowed to remain in her seat while the case plays out. Cook would have to fight the legal battle herself as the injured party rather than the Fed fighting it. It is the latest effort by the administration to take control over one of the few remaining independent agencies in Washington. Trump has repeatedly attacked the Fed's chair, Jerome Powell, for not cutting short-term interest rates and even threatened to fire him. Forcing Cook off the Fed's governing board would provide Trump an opportunity to appoint a loyalist. Trump has said he would only appoint officials who would support cutting rates. This is a big story. Wow. All right, I want to get some comments from you guys on this. Crew Dog says, don't need the Fed. Cruella says, I came in like a wrecking ball. Mac Daddy Alexis said, didn't Trump get sued for falsified property values? Yes, there was a court ruling against him for that. That was the civil case against him in New York. It's this one here, prosecution of Donald Trump in New York. It was a criminal case against Donald Trump. at the time former president, he was charged with 34 felony counts of. Oh no, that's a different case. There's a different case. That's the one for the Stormy Daniels thing. There was a different one. The one for the business, the civil fraud case. Here it is. New York business fraud lawsuit against the Trump Organization. That was a civil investigation and lawsuit alleging that individuals and business entities within the Trump Organization engaged in financial fraud by presenting vastly disparate property values to potential lenders and tax officials in violation of New York executive law. The defendants were Donald Trump, 5 other individuals, including 3 of his children, and 10 business entities, including some that own property in New York, Florida, and Chicago. After a trial, presiding judge Arthur Engoron ordered the defendants to disgorge a total of $364 million of ill-gotten gains, among other penalties, but an appeal court voided the penalty, although the appeals court, I don't believe, voided the ruling. If I can find the appeal of verdict, where is it? This is from Wikipedia, by the way. This is from Yes. On August 21, 2025, the appeals court upheld Trump's liability. So they backed the decision. They did not void the decision, but they voided the penalty as excessive. That was the appeals court ruling. Anyways, just to give you background on that. Okay. But thank you for bringing that up. Thank you, by the way, to Alex Price and Lukava Avatane. Lukava says dictator authoritarian. Our viewer, says, our viewer, Chris N says winning. Justin King says that the New York civil case, the financial fraud case against him, was a witch hunt, says Justin King. Now, I don't know what effect this move is going to have on the markets. Oh. I have something from Reuters here. Instant View analyst reaction to Trump firing Fed's cook. Again, she is one of the 7 members, the 7 governors of the Fed. That makes her one of the 12, she was. That makes her one of the 12 people who determined the key federal funds interest rate. President Trump has fired her, claiming that over alleged, what he says she lied on 1 or more mortgage applications. President Trump has also been very critical of the Fed recently for not lowering interest rates. So there's this question, is he really firing her because he's outraged over her mortgage applications, or is it an excuse to get someone on the Fed board, on the Board of Governors, another person who will lower interest rates more than she would be likely to? You can see here, Reuters says U.S. President Trump on Monday took the unprecedented action of firing Lisa Cook, the first African-American woman to serve as a Federal Reserve governor, over claims of mortgage borrowing impropriety. The U.S. dollar softened across the board after the news. Comments. So they talked to some financial experts to see what they were saying. Charu Chanana, chief investment strategist, Saxo Singapore. Markets aren't panicking, but they are recalibrating. Earlier rate cuts look more likely after Cook's removal. But this just isn't about rate cuts. It's about the Fed's independence from the president and the growing institutional risks in the U.S. Gold and the yen are rallying. Investors are hedging not against one dismissal, but against the long shadow it casts over the Fed's independence. The yield curve will steepen if markets believe looser policy comes at the cost of inflation control and credibility. Bart Wakabayashi, Tokyo branch manager, State Street, Tokyo. All of this, tariffs included, is just another reason the U.S. can't be trusted. That's what's impacting the dollar. It's chaos. There's no stability. There's no credibility. That's the basis of the U.S. being the safest investment in the world. If you're a responsible investor, it gives you pause. Carol Kong, currency strategist, Commonwealth Bank of Australia, Sydney. His removal of Cook is just another attempt to influence the FOMC policymaking. FOMC is the 12-person group that determines the federal funds interest rates. She was one of them. Carol Kong says his removal of Cook is just another attempt to influence FOMC policymaking. He has been doing so for the past couple of months. As evidenced by the dollar's fall against other major currencies, this development is certainly dollar negative because it would just create another opening for Trump to install another dovish governor within the FOMC who is more likely to want to lower interest rates. That's what she's saying. Shoki Omori, chief jest strategist, Mizuho Securities Tokyo says, hold on a second, says, see if I can get this posted for you. Is this it? Let's see. Let me get this on the screen for you. Says, shouldn't it be here? Why are you not seeing that? Why are you not seeing that? Oh, I got to see it. I'll make this bigger so you can see it. Another analyst, Shoki Omori, chief jest strategist of Mizuho Securities Tokyo, says, this doesn't look good. He says, I think it's a he. Hold on, this is all messed up now too. This is all messed up too. Here. This doesn't look good. The Fed doesn't look like an independent organization anymore. Loss of confidence in the Fed will probably prompt loss of confidence in the greenback as well. Markets have not priced in the fact that Trump could go after other Fed officials. I guess he says besides Jerome Powell. What is priced in right now is that we have a higher chance of a rate cut in September and further cuts this year, which has pushed USD JPY down. The dollar and U.S. rates will perform based on how aggressively Trump speaks about the Fed going forward. So those are some people in finance who Reuters got some early feedback from. All right, hang on a moment here. Edward Nolfi says independent does not mean you can break the law. Oh, hold on a second. Here is a reaction from Democrat Don Beyer, who is on the Ways and Means Committee. He is a Democrat House member, Don Beyer, from Virginia. He said, let me show you what he had to say. He said, this is blatantly illegal and Trump knows it. He said, Fed independence is vital to protect our economy from political interference. Trump is putting our financial system at risk over bogus claims of fraud, an offense of which he himself was convicted. This will be fought in court. Nick P., our viewer, thinks it makes us look like an unstable nation. One of our viewers said, Franz Pooch said, you're fired. Better You Than Me says, it doesn't look good, it looks great. Hey, what's happening with Bitcoin right now? Oh, Bitcoin, I mean, since this announcement, I don't think it's changed that much. Bitcoin has been dropping today. But I'm looking right now. Well, actually, it's below 109,000 right now. So this announcement came out about, what, a half hour ago? Yeah, I mean, in the last hour, in the last half hour, Bitcoin has dropped from 109, basically 1,000, from roughly 109,900 to 108,900. It's at 108,800. But just so you're aware, I mean, Bitcoin in the last 24 hours, it had been up at about 113 and it dropped to about 109 or 110. So it had already been dropping today. But it is down now below 109,000. Again, I don't know for sure that it's related to this. I'm just mentioning it. I have no idea. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. And we'll have to see what happens with the markets. Is the futures market even open right now? U.S. futures? I don't think it's open all night. This is a huge deal, though. This is a really, really big deal. Gaucho says all night. Hold on a second here. I don't know. So CNN has a futures page where they say that, like, for example, NASDAQ futures are down 0.4% and Dow is down 0.2%. I don't know if that's accurate. And then I'm looking at another page that says, can't even tell here. Yeah, something pretty similar. I'll keep an eye on it. Let's go over what's happening again for people just joining the stream. Give me a moment. Give me one moment. Just one moment here. Just give me one moment. Okay, so President Trump has announced that he is firing. One moment here. He is firing Lisa Cook, who is one of the 12 people who determines the key federal funds interest rate in the United States. She is one of the 7 Federal Reserve Board of Governors. He says that it's because she allegedly lied on one or more mortgage application documents in 2021. But he has been clear, President Trump, in recent months, that he wants the Fed to lower interest rates. So some are seeing this as possibly Trump coming up with an excuse to get rid of a member of the Fed to replace it with somebody he chooses who will be more likely to lower interest rates. And the Fed has traditionally been seen and is expected widely in the markets to be independent of what the president wants to do. So, what is going to happen? Let me just show you here again. Oh, let me just say thanks to a couple people, and I'll show you again what he said. Hang on. Where is... Oopsie. There. Good. I got it. Hey, a quick thank you to Brian Speece, who thinks it's the start of getting rid of the Federal Reserve. Thanks to Brian. Thanks to John Stevens. CAC 813. Alex, I saw your question. I'll have to just look at it later. I don't have an answer for you. I'll have to look it up if I have time later. Thank you, Mr. Crash. Mr. Crash said he said before it would be time to go after people. Thank you, CAC 813. Kevin L., our member. Doc No 27. Caleb. Caleb says Trump pretending like he's never done a little mortgage fraud. Thank you, Mitchell Pilot, who says, thanks for your attention to this matter. Thank you, Vanessa. Also, PZ Papa Zulu. And Vindog Radio. Vindog Radio thinks the Federal Reserve is a racket and needs to go. All right, so let's read again. This is a really big story. I know it might seem like obscure and, oh, it's only about this obscure body, the Federal Reserve and one of the governors. No, this is the body that she is one of the 12 people that basically determines the level of interest rates in the United States. And if the markets around the world start thinking that, oh, the Federal Reserve in the U.S. is controlled by the president, is not independent. For example, one thing they might think is that there's going to be a bunch of inflation in the future because the Fed would be less likely to raise interest rates to control inflation than they would be otherwise. It could have significant impacts on like the value of the dollar, on long-term bond prices, huge economic impacts on the U.S. and I assume around the world too. You can see here, all right, so President Trump said, Dear Governor Cook, pursuant to my authority under Article 2 of the Constitution of the United States and the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 as amended, you are hereby removed from your position on the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve effective immediately. The Federal Reserve Act provides that you may be removed at my discretion for cause. So he can't just fire people just for no reason. You have to have a reason, cause, to fire someone from this position. Trump says, I have determined that there is sufficient cause to remove you from your position. He says, as set forth in the criminal referral dated August 15, 2025 from Mr. William J. Pulte, Director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency. As I pointed out, William J. Pulte has been he's been one of, if not the biggest publicly anti-Jerome Powell people in the Trump administration. He's been constantly posting on social media against Jerome Powell, doing TV appearances, disapproving of Jerome Powell, William J. Pulte. And Jerome Powell being the head of the Federal Reserve, who President Trump wants to lower interest rates. So as set forth in the criminal referral dated August 15, 2025 from Mr. William J. Pulte, Director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, to Ms. Pamela Bondi, Attorney General of the United States, there is sufficient reason to believe you may have made false statements on one or more mortgage agreements. For example, as detailed in the criminal referral, you signed one document attesting that a property in Michigan would be your primary residence for the next year. 2 weeks later, you signed another document for a property in Georgia stating that it would be your primary residence for the next year. It is inconceivable that you were not aware of your first commitment when making the second. It is impossible that you intended to honor both. Trump continues, the Federal Reserve has tremendous responsibility for setting interest rates and regulating reserve and member banks, the American people must be able to have full confidence in the honesty of the members entrusted with setting policy and overseeing the Federal Reserve. In light of your deceitful and potentially criminal conduct in a financial matter, they cannot and I do not have such confidence in your integrity. At a minimum, the conduct at issue exhibits the sort of gross negligence in financial transactions that calls into question your competence and trustworthiness as a financial regulator. Trump goes on to say, the executive power of the United States is vested in me as president, and as president, I have a solemn duty to ensure that the laws of the United States are faithfully executed. I have determined that faithfully executing the law requires your immediate removal from office. Thank you for your attention to this matter. By the way, clearly this was not done when the U.S. markets were open. This was done at about 8 p.m. Eastern time. I don't know if that was intentional, to do it while the markets were not open. I leave that to you. I mean, world markets are open, but not the U.S. stock market. Hang on here. Here, Trump moves to fire top Federal Reserve official Lisa Cook. Wow. Smyrna says, who will step in to take her place? Well, presumably, one of the other articles we were reading was talking about how, I forget what article, was it the AP article? Yeah, AP says forcing Cook off the Fed's governing board would provide Trump an opportunity to appoint a loyalist. Trump has said he would only appoint officials who would support cutting interest rates. Triggers says draining the swamp, promise made, promise kept. Keep Choppin says futures have hardly moved, just normal after hours movement. Our viewer Sky Breeze says a whole felon upholding U.S. laws. Funface said she messed up. DE said, did Trump read How to Collapse the Dollar for Dummies? I have not seen a comment from Lisa Cook yet. Let me show you this. Trump, oh no, that's that, not that one. Here's the one from tonight. Trump moves to fire the Fed governor, top Federal Reserve official Lisa Cook. President Trump moved to oust Fed Reserve Governor Lisa Cook over unproven allegations that she committed mortgage fraud, ratcheting up his path to bend the independent central bank to his will. In a letter to Cook, this is from the Washington Post, in a letter to Cook posted on social media late Monday, Trump said he would seek to fire her immediately, citing his authority to fire Fed governors for cause. It is not clear that Trump has the legal authority to oust Cook. We've seen several articles mention this, that they expect a legal fight over this. A Federal Reserve spokeswoman declined to immediately comment. Cook has declined to comment on the allegations, but she said last week she wouldn't be bullied into resigning from the 7-member Fed board. The Federal Reserve is set up to operate independently of the White House. The Post says the Trump administration has increasingly leaned on personal mortgage data to investigate and now fire its political adversaries. Earlier this year, the Justice Department received a criminal referral over real estate records from New York Attorney General Letitia James, who has filed multiple lawsuits against both Trump administrations. In July, Trump publicly accused Senator Adam Schiff, Democrat of California, who led impeachment proceedings against Trump as a House member, of mortgage fraud. The result, legal experts say, is an escalation in the way Trump officials seek to penalize, remove, or even jail adversaries. I talked about Bill Pulte before, and it reflects the remarkable influence of Bill Pulte, the head of a relatively small part of government that oversees the mortgage market. Pulte was the first to accuse Cook of alleged mortgage fraud, and he continued these attacks nonstop over the past week. Trump quickly escalated those accusations, first calling on Cook to resign, then threatening her termination, and eventually firing her. In an interview with Bloomberg Television last week, Pulte said his office received a tip about Cook, but declined to elaborate further. How are the markets going to take this? Bloomberg has a headline right now, dollar falls with longer treasuries as Trump fires Fed's Cook. And they say the dollar weakened against all of its major peers. They also say 30-year bond yields climbed on concern looser monetary policy would risk refueling inflation. It's actually interesting. I'll post a link to it. If you go, I'm looking at a US 30-year Treasury chart, and clearly the 30-year Treasury bond yields went up. They spiked a bunch around the time of the announcement, because I'm seeing it right in front of me. Bitcoin is about even since the announcement. Candice Jorgen thinks the dollar will be totally unaffected and those headlines are bunk. The Notorious Rob says he skipped Economics 101 and went straight to how to tank a currency in 3 easy steps. By the way, thanks to Edu Makashun on Twitch for your support, and Hazitude on Twitch. Oxytropis on Twitch. Thank you, Oxytropis. And CC143. Wasn't there was also a thing where a Fed governor resigned early. Which will also give him a chance to appoint someone. Adriana Kugler. Hang on, I'll tell you something about that. Yeah, so this was something that happened a few weeks ago. You can see this is from Reuters from a few weeks ago. Governor Adriana Kugler said she was resigning early on August 8th, potentially shaking up what was already a fractious succession process for federal leadership. She was supposed to be there until January 31st, 2026, so another 4 or 5 months. And you can see here it says Trump will now get to select a Fed governor to replace Kugler and finish out her term. Some speculation has centered on the idea that Trump might pick a potential future chair to fill that slot as a holding place. But now, she was one person, but she resigned early. But now Trump has fired another of the governors. The Washington Post also says no president has ever tried to oust a sitting governor. This is the first time it's ever happened. This is the first time. Here is a report from Reuters. They say U.S. dollar treasury slide on latest Trump attack on Fed. The dollar in U.S. Treasury slid on in Asian trading on Tuesday after President Trump announced he was moving a Federal Reserve governor, which undermined confidence in U.S. assets. The dollar fell against the yen and euro after Trump said on social media he was removing Lisa Cook from her position on the Fed's Board of Governors, the latest in a series of attacks on the central bank's independence. Asian shares followed declines on Wall Street as prospects for a Fed rate cut next month became less certain. U.S. stock futures retreated. Bart Wakabayashi, the Tokyo branch manager of State Street, said, all of this tariffs included is just another reason the U.S. can't be trusted. There's no credibility. That's the basis of the U.S. being the safest investment in the world. If you're a responsible investor, it gives you pause. Trump said there was enough evidence that Cook had made false statements on mortgage applications. Trump has regularly threatened to fire Fed Chair Jerome Powell, who was nominated by Trump during his first term in the White House and then nominated for a second term by Biden. Trump, who lacks the legal authority to fire the Fed chair except for cause, has backed away from that threat as Powell gets closer to the expiration of his term as a Fed chief next May. There was some thought that maybe Trump would try to fire Powell, claiming he had mismanaged the renovation of the Fed building. Let me give you a little more analysis from Reuters also. Here's Lisa Cook right there. Trump fires Fed's Cook alleging false statements on mortgage forms. Again, she was one of the 12 people on the Federal Open Market Committee, which includes all 7 of the Fed's Board of Governors, who decides what the federal funds interest rate is. The firing of Cook marked an escalation in Trump's attempt to reshape the makeup of the Fed leadership ranks. He has been pressuring the central bank for aggressive rate cuts at a time when Fed officials have kept them steady amid ongoing worries about inflation. The president has regularly threatened to fire Fed Chair Jerome Powell, as we said, But he has backed away from that threat as Powell gets closer to the expiration of his term as Fed chief next May. Cook's exit from the Fed. Cook had been serving in a term that expired in 2038, it says. Cook had been serving in a term that expired in 2038. Is that a misprint or is that true? Term length 14 years. Yes. Her term, well, according to, I'm seeing something online that says 2036. Fed governors typically serve 14-year terms, guys. 14-year terms. She was nominated in 2023. Yes, I think it's 2036. She has been a member of the Board of Governors since 2022. So she would have been there till 2036 if she wanted to be. Cook's exit from the Fed after he was fired by her, assuming that she loses a possible legal battle, could speed up the president's reshaping of the Fed. He recently elevated Fed Governor Michelle Bowman to be the central bank's top regulator, and is believed to be considering Fed Governor Christopher Walter, who he named to the board in 2020 to succeed Powell. Two other Biden appointments on the Fed board have some time left in their terms, while Powell could stay on as a governor until 2028 at the end of his term as head of the central bank. Now, let me just show you this real quick. At the bottom here, it says, of this Reuters article, financial issues have been a regular issue for U.S. central bank officials in recent years. In 2021, the then presidents of the Dallas and Boston Fed banks both resigned after revelations of active trading in financial markets. While both were later cleared by the Fed's in-house watchdog of wrongdoing, the central bank's Inspector General nevertheless said their trading created the appearance of a conflict of interest. In response to the controversy, the Fed tightens its ethics rules governing officials' personal investing. Now, something Trump could do is he could fire her, but then replace her with someone known as being a hawk on interest rates, right? He could do that. You know, he could say, I'm choosing this person, and the person he chooses is somebody known for wanting to keep interest rates high, but we'll see who he chooses. Why would he want to do that? Well, if he wants to avoid accusations that he's only doing it to reshape the Fed to make it more likely to lower interest rates. That would be the reason for doing it. Oh, this is interesting. Victoria Guida, who is with Politico, she's an economics correspondent for them. She said that it's unclear whether President Trump can legally do this. So she says that the Fed faces a dilemma. Do they treat her as fired or not? That's an interesting question. They haven't commented yet, the Fed. Politico points out that Trump's allegation of mortgage fraud is something that she hasn't been criminally charged for, and there have been no findings of misconduct yet regarding that. Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren, this is what she said about it. Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren says, this is an authoritarian power grab that blatantly violates the Federal Reserve Act, and any court that follows the law will overturn it. She thinks it's going to get overturned in the courts. I have no idea. Our viewer Culture Guy said, are we burning down the Fed yet? Our viewer Dr. Broccoli thinks the Fed has to say something soon. What, maybe tomorrow? Ghost King says escorted off the property. Paula Thompson, our viewer, says, do legalities matter anymore? Hey, a quick thanks to our... Sorry, I gotta drink some more water. A quick thanks to our moderators. I really appreciate it. Roberts May Queen, Janet B. Thank you so much. They're moderating over there on YouTube. On Facebook, Kay Lowry Body, Margaret Riley, thanks for moderating over there. And thanks also Jennifer Ellers for being one of our subscribers, Martha Crawford for being a subscriber, and Kay and Margaret as well for being subscribers on Facebook. And also our Twitch moderators, 13 Almo, Big Ball of Yarn, Matthew Kohai, 3 McBritches, Linda Bell, Glary, and Misha on X. Thanks to our Twitch subscribers too, people like Wall Street and Shaggy, Notorious Rob, Artful Nothing, Douthis, this is quite something. Thanks to Big Dog Gaming for your support. Night Owl for subscribing. Our viewer, Wendy Lee, pointed out that one of the Federal Reserve governors is supposed to make a speech on Thursday. I'm guessing we might get a comment from the Federal Reserve tomorrow on this. Although maybe it'll be kind of just like a brief comment. I don't know what they're going to say. "13 Alamo points out that Fed governors can only be fired for cause. I don't know, again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a legal expert. I have seen lots of discussion in some of the articles I've read and online saying that this is going to be, they anticipate a legal battle over this. But I cannot say how it's going to turn out. By the way, really quick, this is not a story we're covering. I want to quickly mention it. Billy Joe Drage, our viewer, reminded me of this. So in some different countries, they've stopped shipping packages to the U.S. temporarily. Why is this all weird? Oh, I see. I think I see. Did I get it? Why is this looking... Oh, what did I do here? Why is this... Oh, I see. That's why it's messed up. Sorry, it was off the screen. So what you can see here is it says European Postal Services suspend shipment of packages to U.S. over tariffs. I think some other countries did this too. The end of an exemption on tariff duties for low-value packages coming into the U.S. is causing multiple international postal services to pause shipping to the U.S. as they await more clarity on the rule. The exemption, known as the de minimis exemption, allows packages worth less than $800 to come into the U.S. duty-free. A total of 1.36 billion packages were sent last year under this exemption. It is set to expire on Friday. On Saturday, postal services around Europe announced they are suspending the shipment of many packages to the U.S. amid confusion over new import duties. Postal services in Germany, Denmark, Sweden, and Italy said they would stop shipping most merchandise to the U.S. effective immediately. France and Austria will follow on Monday. The U.K. will halt on Tuesday. But I guess the idea is once they get more clarity on this, that they will start again. It's not a permanent stoppage. I just wanted to mention that. And I believe there are other countries too. Bradley Moore mentioned this. Thank you, Bradley Moore mentioned it too. Bradley mentioned that ABC News Australia said Australia Post also has halted most parcel postage to U.S. because of tariff chaos. But I believe these are intended to be temporary stoppages. The New York Times says that Lisa Cook could legally challenge Trump's dismissal. And they said that could be a landmark battle on the president's power over the Fed. Yeah, so something else the Times pointed out is they say that President Trump legally can only remove a Federal Reserve governor for cause. And it's possible, the question is what counts as cause? And they say, as we've discussed, Lisa Cook has not been charged with a crime. She has not been proven guilty in court of doing any of breaking the law. So that's one reason why it may not count as acceptable cause. I don't know. I mean, sounds like there might be a legal fight over this. Gen X thinks suspicion is not a cause. Again, I'm not going to try to get it, start giving you legal analysis. But this is really interesting what's going to happen with this. I have some more here for you. By the way, thank you to Shipclock. Shipclock says, personally, don't see what all the hoopla is about. I quite clearly remember being told no one is above the law, can't have two primary residences. Thank you so much, Shipclock. I want to say again, this is not a criminal charge. If the U.S. government, prosecutors, believe she has broken the law, they can criminally charge her. This is not criminal, and they could criminally charge her, and she would have a chance to defend herself in a court of law. This is not a criminal. She hasn't been charged with anything yet. President Trump has said she did this. Well, that he said there's enough evidence that she did this that he feels she should be removed. But just to be clear, I'm separating, there's criminal charges and then there's President Trump firing her from her job. That has nothing to do, that's not a criminal charge. That's not in the court system. That's not part of the Department of Justice activity. Thank you again to Ship Clock 5. I appreciate that. Thank you, Prepper Medic. If you're just joining us, just to summarize what happened, Trump fires Fed Governor Lisa Cook, opening new front in fight for control over central bank. Again, she was one of the 7 governors of the Fed, and she is one of the 12 people who determines the key federal funds rate, interest rate in the United States. President Trump has long wanted those rates lowered and says the Fed is not lowering them as they should be, he says. But the Fed is supposed to be independent of presidential control. So some are seeing this not as President Trump just getting rid of somebody for wrongdoing. Some are seeing this as President Trump coming up with an excuse to get rid of somebody who doesn't want to lower interest rates as much as he wants, to replace her with somebody who will want to lower interest rates as much as he wants. President Trump fired Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook late Monday, an unprecedented move. No president, I believe, has ever tried to remove a Federal Reserve governor. That constitutes a sharp escalation in his battle to exert greater control over what has long been considered an institution independent from day-to-day politics. He sent in a letter posted on his True Social platform. AP says that he is removing Cook because of allegations that she committed mortgage fraud. Bill Pulte, a Trump appointee to the agency that regulates mortgage giants Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and a leading Trump administration critic of the Fed, by the way, made the accusations last week. Pulte alleged that Cook had claimed 2 primary residences in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Atlanta in 2021, to get better mortgage terms. Mortgage rates are often higher on second homes or those purchased to rent. The firing is likely to touch off an extensive legal battle that will probably go to the Supreme Court, says AP, and could disrupt financial markets, potentially pushing interest rates higher. The independence of the Fed from the president is considered critical to its ability to fight inflation because it enables it to take unpopular steps like raising interest rates. If bond investors start to lose faith that the Fed will be able to control inflation, they will demand higher rates to own bonds, pushing up borrowing costs for mortgages, car loans, and business loans. I know that seems confusing. You might think, well, I thought you said President Trump would replace her with somebody more likely to lower interest rates. Well, this is going to be confusing, I think, because it is, but the Federal Reserve sets interest rates for the country. But there's the Federal Reserve interest rates, but then also the bond market has its own interest rates, has its own rates, because bonds are bought and sold on the secondary market. So regardless of what the Fed sets the interest rates at, set the interest rates as, the bond rates can go higher or lower depending on what the market thinks inflation is going to do. I know this is really confusing and it's complex, but they can't set bond prices. So the Fed, the U.S. government borrows money by selling bonds. So the U.S. government can't just say what interest rates they will pay to borrow money. It's up to people to buy the bonds. So if investors think that interest rates are going to be high over time, that inflation is going to be high over time, they're going to want higher rates. They're going to want higher bond rates, higher bond interest rates. So if you're an investor and you think inflation is going to be high, if you're going to loan money to the United States government and get it back in 10 years, you're going to want more interest payments on that, because inflation's going to go up and make the value of a dollar worth less. So the point is that regardless of what they set the interest rates as, if investors think inflation's going to go up in the long term, it's going to cost more for the U.S. to borrow money. So I know it's a bit confusing, but it says the independence of the Fed is considered critical in its ability to fight inflation because the independence enables it to take unpopular steps like raising interest rates, which, say, a president might not want them to do. If bond investors, basically the people who loan money to the U.S. government, start to lose faith that the Fed will be able to control inflation, they will demand higher rates to own bonds. They will demand more of a return on their loans to the United States, pushing up and that won't just push up costs for borrowing for the U.S. It'll push up borrowing costs on all kinds of things, for mortgages, car loans, and business loans. And I am not a financial expert, so I'm sorry that I can't do a better job of explaining this. Legal scholars noted that the allegations are likely a pretext for the president to open up another seat on the 7-member board so he can appoint a loyalist to push for his long-stated goal of lower interest rates. So these people think this is just basically a fake excuse to fire her so he can replace her with somebody to lower interest rates. Now, you might not agree with that, but some people think that. Fed governors vote on the central bank's interest rate decisions and on issues of financial regulation. While they are appointed by the president and confirmed by the Senate, they are not like cabinet secretaries who serve at the pleasure of the president. They serve 14-year terms that are staggered in an effort to insulate the Fed from political influence. No president has sought to fire a Fed governor before. In recent decades, presidents of both parties have largely respected Fed independence, although Richard Nixon and Lyndon Johnson put heavy pressure on the Fed during their presidencies, mostly behind closed doors. Still, that behind-the-scenes pressure to keep interest rates low, the same goal sought by Trump, has widely been blamed for touching off rampant inflation in the late 60s and 70s. This announcement came days after Cook said she wouldn't leave despite Trump previously calling for her to resign. Senate Democrats have expressed support for Cook. The firing is likely to touch off a legal battle, AP says, and Cook could be allowed, and this will be interesting to see, Cook could be allowed to remain in her seat while the case plays out. Cook would have to fight the legal battle herself as the injured party rather than the Fed. AP thinks this is the latest effort by the administration to take over one of the few remaining independent agencies in Washington. Trump has repeatedly attacked the Fed's chair, Jerome Powell, for not cutting its short-term interest rate, which is true. He has attacked him and threatened to fire him. Forcing Cook off the Fed's governing board would provide Trump an opportunity to appoint a loyalist. Trump has said he would only appoint officials who would support cutting interest rates. Trump will be able to replace Powell in May as the head of the Fed. But he'll still be on the Federal Open Market Committee, one of the 12 members. Wow. What is going to happen with the Fed? Will she indeed be, is this going to end up in a Supreme Court case? Stephen Elder, our viewer, says, rooting out corruption seems like a win to me. Naughty Beast thinks there will be chaos in the American markets tomorrow. Left-handed says, I like Trump's guts as a leader. It's Dave, just Dave says, have any federal judges committed mortgage fraud? Edward Porter says, you people don't realize how much this could spook world markets. Sam, our viewer, says lowering interest rates will increase inflation. Jean-Paul Lechance says, watch the market in the morning. I mean, maybe the market will wait to see what happens with her, whether she really leaves or not. I don't know. Squirrel Fitness writes in and says they've been completely wrong about Trump and inflation while touting Biden's plan that caused huge inflation. Rick Mack says dictator Trump is bringing the U.S. dollar down. RWD thinks markets will explode higher when rates finally come down, make home ownership affordable again. Healing Men's Hearts thinks Trump will soon probably fire Powell. Powell has until May. Maybe we'll do a poll. Will Trump fire Powell? Because that would have to be before May, because he has until May. Trump has said more recently he won't do it, I think. Cowboy says, please Trump crash market so I can buy in and win. All right, let me post this poll question. Bella says, if a Federal Reserve governor participated in fraud, that's wild. If the president wrongly accused a Federal Reserve governor for self-gain, that's wild. Bottom line, wild. Lake Girl says, if he fires Powell, the markets will crash. I'll try to post this poll on Facebook. I haven't had good luck lately posting polls on Facebook. I'm trying. Quickly trying here. I bet it won't work again. It hasn't been working well. Supposedly it's on in Facebook, but I don't think it's working. Anyways, let me show you the results of the poll. Hey, thanks to Starburst, by the way, who says, how did the bank not see the first mortgage on her credit report? No for second home, bank not check, bank also guilty of something. Yeah, I don't know the specifics about everything that went on with her mortgage application. That I do not know. Thank you so much, Starburst. I really appreciate it. All right, so I asked you guys, I said, will Trump fire Powell? So that would be before next May, which is a while to wait if he's not going to fire him. 9 months or whatever. Okay, so on YouTube, 55% of you thought he would fire Powell. How about on Twitch? They're pretty different than YouTube tonight. 69% say no on Twitch. Hang on a second here. Herb says Twitch chat is always wrong. O says Trump firing Powell would cut your retirement account in half overnight. The thing is, though, I mean, this is a case where he is firing one of the 12 people that determines the interest rates. She is one of the 12 people, just like Powell is. I mean, Powell's the Fed chair, but she is one of the 12 people. And presumably he's firing her and going to replace her with someone who wants to lower interest rates. Now, Napoleon Solo says, hope the Fed raises rates. They need to push back. Thank you, Napoleon Solo, for your support. You know, another question is there's been this talk of whether the Fed would lower rates soon. And now I have a question of if the Fed does lower rates, but what happens if he replaces her and then the Fed lowers rates? Will people be like, in the market, be like, well, they're only lowering it because he wanted them to and he's pressuring them. They're not lowering it because they think it's the right thing to do. I don't know. Is September the next time? Is that the next? It's September. I mean, it's August right now. There's a question of whether they will in September. September 17th is the next time they decide. I'm looking at the futures right now. I mean, stock futures in the U.S. are not down by much. Just a little bit from what I'm seeing. Two of the current 7 Fed governors are Trump appointees, by the way. And also Powell was originally nominated by Trump. He's a third. And Trump has nominated another person to fill the seat of one of them who announced her resignation earlier this month. So assuming if Trump's nominee Stephen Murin is confirmed for the empty seat, and then he replaces Cook, he would have 4 of the 7 Board of Governor members of the Fed would be nominated by Trump. The board controls the Federal Open Market Committee, 12 people, 7 Fed governors, and 5 other people, regional presidents. They determine the key federal funds rate, but the board itself says, according to CNBC, the board itself sets several other rates. Thanks for voting in our poll, by the way. Thanks to Sigma. Sigma thinks Trump will not fire Powell, and the Fed will cut rates at least 50 basis points by 2026. And Powell will retire next year with investors loving him. That's what Sigma thinks. Kevin Moyer says, the world is laughing at USA. It could only happen in USA. Patrick thinks they're going to cut rates no matter what. Ad revenue in ramen says, no shot Trump tries to take on J. Powell. Hey, thanks, Sean, for your support as well. I appreciate that, Sean. And P.A. Jeeper, who says, end the Fed. Thank you, P.A. Jeeper. That's very kind of you. Also, Gen X, who says, none of us get to act surprised by anything Trump says or does. She says the USA has been downgraded to a non-democracy by polity project. Thank you to Gary Baines for the gift membership. That's very nice of you, Gary. Thank you for Lucia Harizo. Thank you, Lucia. Anon Cognito, thank you. And thanks for your suggestion. Gemini Rose 55, thanks for being a member. Well, it's 10 o'clock p.m. now. We'll have to see how the markets react tomorrow. And also what happens over time. I mean, it sounds like there might be a court case. One of the articles I read said this is going to probably go to the Supreme Court. By the way, something else economy-wise, President Trump also posted this tonight on True Social. He said, as the President of the United States, I will stand up to countries that attack our incredible American tech companies. Digital taxes, digital services legislation, and digital markets regulations are designed to harm or discriminate against American technology. They also outrageously give a complete pass to China's largest tech companies. This must end. And now, with this truth, I put all countries with digital taxes, legislation, rules, or regulations on notice that unless these discriminatory actions are removed, I, as President of the United States, will impose substantial additional tariffs on that country's exports to the USA and institute export restrictions on our highly protected technology and chips. America and American technology companies are neither the piggy bank nor the doormat of the world any longer. Show respect to America and our amazing tech companies, or consider the consequences. Thank you for your attention to this matter. That's a bit of a different story, though. Hey, thanks to Roger Shoemaker for the gift memberships. That's really nice of you, Roger. Thank you. Also, Buddy McKinley. Buddy thinks if China and Japan sell their U.S. treasuries, we're done. Thank you so much, Buddy McKinley. All right, guys. Let me just check one other thing here. I think it's too early to even have like editorials about this. Maybe try tomorrow, there'll be a bunch of editorials about it. Wall Street Journal, a lot of outlets are saying, again, no member of the Board of Governors has ever been, no president has ever tried to remove one of the Board of Governors. Okay. Guys, I think it's time. I think we have covered this story to the degree I think was warranted by an intro stream on it. I think it's really important, and also it'll be, what does it say about, will President Trump, first of all, we don't know how this will play out. Will he be able to successfully remove her, as he says, and appoint someone else who wants to lower interest rates? Does this suggest he might get more active with Jerome Powell? Is there any chance he might try to remove Jerome Powell? Could he get active in other ways? And how will the markets look at this? I don't know. But I think it's a big deal. It's a very big deal. It's a very big deal also if the markets think that if the markets around the world, including the US, think that the Fed is no longer independent. That could have a big impact. Let me just read this one more time here. From the AP story. The independence of the Fed is considered critical to its ability to fight inflation because it enables it to take unpopular steps like raising interest rates. If bond investors start to lose faith that the Fed will be able to control inflation, they will demand higher rates to own bonds, pushing up borrowing costs for mortgages, car loans, and business loans. Thank you, Omega Survival, who says, how did we ever make it before federal taxes? Oh, yeah, tariffs. Okay, guys, we're wrapping up this coverage. I'm very interested to see where this story goes. But this is a big deal. I'm sure in the financial world, there's a lot of discussion about what's going on with this. But I really appreciate you guys joining me for this stream. We came on right after the SpaceX launch stream. We were going to cover the SpaceX Starship launch, and it got scrubbed for a second straight day. So planning on covering it, if it happens tomorrow night, I guess it might. Well, planning on covering that, the SpaceX Starship launch. So I hope you can join us for that. And oh, by the way, our viewer Rob Fossil says, this undermines the legitimacy of the Fed and reporting honest data. That's what Rob says. Some of our viewers are happy with this move. N.S. Shallon says, this is what I voted for. Some are not. Anyways, I'm going to keep an eye on this. And if there's big developments in this story or around the story, I'll certainly do another stream. And I will post updates about this and other stories on my X account, which is @Lookner. Follow me over there for breaking news if you're on X, @Lookner, Lookner. But I really appreciate you guys being here for this stream and the last stream. And hold on a second here. What happened here? I really appreciate you guys. I was just checking if I missed something here. Hold on. There we go. I really appreciate you guys being here for the stream and being here for the last stream. Hey, if there's big news later tonight, we'll come back on the air and cover that too. But this is Agenda Free TV. We cover all kinds of live breaking news without an agenda. Agenda Free TV. So subscribe, follow. If you like the coverage and you want to see more, and turn on notifications. We have our own notification system. It works great because I don't know when big news is going to happen. So I can't tell you in advance our whole schedule. But if you sign up for our free notifications, you'll get sent a notification whenever we go live. They're really reliable, so you don't miss a stream and you know when we're covering breaking news live. The mods will post a link to the notifications in the chat. You can find the notifications link in the description of this video on YouTube and Facebook. So make sure you sign up for those. Okay. Hey, let's shout out our moderators for being here. They are awesome. They are the ones who make it so that we can even have chat rooms. So huge shout out. Roberts May Queen, thanks for being there over there on YouTube. Thank you, Janet B. and our other YouTube moderators. Thank you so much. 13 Alamo, Big Ball of Yarn. I got that fire. Matthew Kohai 3 on Twitch. Big thanks. Sorry the poll is not working. Polls are not working on Facebook, by the way. What can I say? I try. I message him about it. It's not working. Margaret Riley, Kay Lowry Body over on Facebook. Thank you so much. Linda Belk, Larry, and Misha on X. Thank you. Thanks to everybody who donated too. That's super nice of you guys. I really appreciate it. Your donations are what allows this channel to exist. So thank you. Hopefully I got everybody. I think I got everybody. If you ever want to donate, you can go to agendafree.tv, agendafree.tv. Who Shot JR? I don't think I thanked Who Shot JR. Thank you. Hey, another good way to find out when we're live is follow us on X. If you're on X, follow Agenda Free TV. I post there at Agenda Free TV. I post whenever we're going live. I post updates about the channel at Agenda Free TV. Also, hey, we have a chat room where you can chat with other viewers for free. A lot of our viewers like doing it. It's the Discord chat. Check out the Discord chat. The link is the same as the free notifications link, so you can check that out. And big thanks to our Discord moderators, too, for all your help. And also, if you watch on YouTube, make sure you turn on the YouTube notifications. That's another really helpful way to find out when we're live. The YouTube notifications. So to turn those on, you got to subscribe to the channel and then click the notifications bell and then choose all notifications. So subscribe, click the bell, and choose all notifications. All right. Also, I want to thank our Facebook subscribers who subscribe and support the channel, like LT. Oh, thanks to Margaret Riley for the Facebook stars. Oh, and Paul Anderson was modding too. Thanks, Paul. Margaret, thanks for the stars. Thanks, LT, for subscribing. Robert Rial II. Now I can see the poll a little bit. It's really weird. And all of our other Facebook subscribers, thanks for subscribing over there. Our Twitch subscribers, huge thanks to you. Night Owl, Wall Street Shaggy, Artful Nothing, thank you. Chi-Town Bear, Matthew Kohai 3, Golden Tarkus, I Got That Fire, Wall Street, Mini Disc. Mini Disc, I posted a number of posts about the incident in Gaza where the hotel was hit. So you can check my X account. We didn't do a stream on it, but I posted a number of posts on my X account about it. It was a terrible occurrence, which the Prime Minister of Israel apologized for. Also, thanks to our YouTube members. Roger Shoemaker, The Gribble, Wicked Code, Gemini Rose 55, CAC 813, Joe Hart, The Gribble, Wicked Code, Justbo, Chris N. Did I say Roger Shoemaker? Waltham, Eric Johnson. Thanks for being members on YouTube and supporting the channel. Leslie Ladyhawk, CAC 813, Eric Johnson, Teresa Bluesy Girl, Laser Moose, Omni, Bella, Gary Baines, Mama of 6, William Cromer, Michael Michaels, Ann Breedenstein, Diamond, Lynn Z, Jane Jones, Tina Marie, thank you, Sausage, Mama of 6, Megatron, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chaos, as well, for watching. Nick Van Sickle, thank you. Zedekiel, David C. Oh, thanks, AZ Intel's dad. That's so kind of you. AZ Intel's dad, thank you. Thanks to everybody else for watching as well. Stephen Orr, thanks. Billy Anderson, Tia Christie, and others. All right, guys. So wrapping it up, I Need Coffee says hopefully SpaceX launch tomorrow. Yeah, I'm hoping it actually happens. I'm planning on covering it Tuesday night if there is a launch. It's supposed to be, maybe. So I hope you can join me tomorrow night if there's a launch. And we hope it actually launches. And we'll bring you other coverage of other big stories as well. Thanks to Leslie Ladyhawk for being a member as well. All right, guys, that is it for now. You've been watching our live coverage of President Trump firing Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. That is it for now. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon with more live breaking news coverage right here at Agenda Free TV.